Hi there, my name is FixFox and welcome back to Heroes of Might and Magic 2. This is going to be the guide for the Wizards faction that you will find in Heroes of Might and Magic 2. These are going to be 20 tips and tricks that you are going to want to know. With that being said, let's dive right in. Tip number 1. The Wizards want to clear the map as efficiently as possible and rush to get their Cloud Castle as soon as possible. You can do this by having a mix of halflings dealing ranged damage behind golems to stay safe. You can use the rocks to deal with most ranged enemies rather effectively, and by safely clearing the adventure map, you can get the resources necessary to pick up your Cloud Castle much sooner than you otherwise would have, which is always going to be your primary win condition as the Wizards. Tip number 2. Look for that pesky leprechaun. Yes, the adventure map object, the Magic Gardens, is going to give the opportunity to collect an extra 5 gems per week if you're lucky, and 500 gold per week if you are unlucky. But while you cannot consistently rely on the output from these Magic Gardens, it could be the difference between getting your Cloud Castle 1 extra week early or not, considering it's almost like having 1 free gem mine for 1 entire week. Tip number 3. Consider the best time to get the library and to upgrade your Archmagi. Here's the thing, because the Archmagi upgrade is locked behind the library as a prerequisite, you have a lot of competition for resources, and sometimes the library is not going to fit into your plans. I would recommend only getting the library after you've got at least a 4th level Mage Guild and the Cloud Castle. For this reason, that way you've already got some good spells, and so you will benefit from having 1 additional spell per level of Mage Guild up to that 4th level. And then also, you will already be well on your way to investing in your Titans, which is still going to be your primary win condition. Tip number 4. Consider using 2 heroes in tandem on the adventure map. And here's how I mean. You're going to have the halflings that are 3-speed creatures already. Those are going to inherently slow down your armies, and throw in some iron golems or some steel golems. You are going to be crawling through the map most of the time. If you can have a secondary hero, one of your heroes at the end of the day can take the slowest of all of your creatures, so that way one of your heroes can be as fast as possible, and that hero can be the one to do the bulk of the picking up of resources and artifacts. That can be the hero that maybe goes and fights your battles. Whatever makes the most sense, using the second hero can mitigate the problems that you will find with having some naturally slow creatures. Also, in the event that you're coming up to some fights that can be pretty tricky to deal with, you can use the extra slots in your army to fight most effectively. For example, if we're going up against a whole stack of Magi or Rangers, how about we leave the iron or the steel golems behind, and then we can have some additional space in our army to split up our big stack of rocks to go and deal with this ranged threat. Tip number 5, giants are not a bad unit.
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
Okay, well, this is a first. I've never had this happen before. How embarrassing. Let me call my friend who can do tip number 5 for us. And yeah, we'll just get them in here as quickly as we can. And then I'm hoping that tip number 6 should be fine. Pick up the phone, pick up the phone, pick up the phone. Okay, I'll just send them a message on Discord. Okay, hopefully they can get here by the end of the video. For now, though, let's go on to tip number 6. Tip number 6, look for a Freeman's Foundry. This adventure map object is going to help your iron golems turn into steel golems for free. And if you do that, you have absolutely no excuse to leave the steel golems behind, as that will raise their speed up to 3 speed, and that will keep them on par with your halflings. Tip number 7, I can almost guarantee you that you are undervaluing how good iron and steel golems are. Now, if you consider what they are a big mix of hit points and defense. They've got a really cool special ability that reduces elemental damage to them. So things like Cold Ray, Lightning Bolt, Fireball, Elemental Storm, those spells will all do only half damage to them. And even though they are very, very slow, they can still pack a punch and take a wallop. And therefore, they are tremendous in a siege, and on the battlefield, they can do some pretty nifty things. Give them a shot, take a look at them, consider whether or not you want to bring these awesome creatures with you on the battlefield, or if you want to leave them at home to make sure that nobody takes your castle for free. Tip number 8, along with the iron and the steel golem's magical resistance, you also have 2 other units with special abilities. That's going to be your Archmagi and your Giants and Titans. Now, the Archmagi have a 20% chance to dispel beneficial spells from anybody that they attack. And funny enough, I have to say anybody that they attack, because if they are berserked and they happen to hit your own units, you can actually accidentally dispel your own beneficial spells. So look out for that. Not very common, but it can happen. And then the other special abilities that you have within your faction troops, the Giants and the Titans are immune to mind-affecting spells. And that's really wonderful, because that means that blinds, paralyzes, berserks, some of the most devastating lockdown magical spells out there are not going to affect some of your excellent troops. Tip number 9, take it in stride that your Giants and your Titans can be affected by some spells. Compare the Titan, arguably the second best creature in the game, to the Black Dragon, which is arguably the best creature in the game. Whereas the dragons, black, red, and green, cannot be affected by any spells whatsoever, that is something of a blessing and a curse for them. Sure, they are not affected by negative spells, but they are also unable to be affected by positive or buffing spells. They can only be impacted by the attack skill and the defense skill of whatever hero commands them. Compare that to Titans. Yes, Titans and Giants can be affected by the attack and defense skill of whatever hero leads them, but also they have the ability to be impacted by some of these positive spells. Sure, you might fall prey to a slow or a disrupting ray, but you can also be blessed. You can be steel-skinned. You can have Resurrect True impact you. Oh, you can also have Dragon Slayer, for example. So while there are some negatives, keep in mind, again, going back to tip number 8, that some of the very worst offending spells, some of the lockdown spells like your blinds and your paralyzes and your berserks, these will not have any effect on your Titans and Giants, and therefore try to find the opportunities to use the buffing spells to great effect. Tip number 10, do your very best to look out for pyramids. The Wizards faction already starts off with heroes that have advanced wisdom. That's going to allow you to learn 4th level spells. It's quite possible that you can fight 1 or 2 fights or grab a gazebo and all of a sudden in the very earliest of games have an opportunity to pick up a 5th level spell from a pyramid. You're going to have the appropriate troops that can deal with about 20 vampire lords and a whole host of royal mummies and so on and so forth, but if you can defeat the Guardians, you can get an early game-changing spell. Tip number 11, do your best to be flexible as a spellcaster. Wizards, they can get either a lot of spell power or a lot of knowledge, but it's actually even. It's an even split, and you are just as likely to get one as you are the other. And what that can do is that from game to game, you might have one game where you have a ton of spell power and another game where you have a bunch of knowledge, and this does impact your strategy. For example, if you have an awful lot of spell power, you're probably going to want to use more damaging spells, things like lightning bolts and cold rays. Maybe this means that if you're on the adventure map, you will look for the artifacts that will benefit and increase the damage of your damaging spells, like the Evercold Icicle, for example, or the Lightning Rod. But if you get a lot of knowledge in another game, maybe that means that you ought to actually invest in higher tiers of mage guilds, because as you go up from 3rd and 4th and 5th level spells, they tend to cost a lot more. And so therefore, you can really benefit from those upper tier spells because you're going to have plenty of spell points to cast them again and again and again and again. And so keep an eye on your best hero if they're a wizard and try and figure out, am I going for damaging spells or am I going more for utility and upper tier, high quality but high cost spells? Number 12, do your best to build a great hero. Look out for the secondary skills like luck, leadership, logistics, pathfinding, and archery. You are very unlikely as the Wizards to pick up archery, but if you do, archery is maybe one of the best secondary skills for the Wizard factions because they've got 3 ranged creatures in the Halflings and the Magi and the Titans. So look out for archery first and foremost if you can possibly get it, and then just know that the other secondary skills, definitely pretty good. Tip number 13, consider using a might-based hero as your primary or your secondary hero. It's very important to note that a barbarian can, in the early game, eliminate much of your terrain penalty problems. Things like snow, not a problem. Swamp, that's not too bad. Desert, it's bad for everybody, but not nearly as bad for the barbarians. And this additional movement through this rough terrain can be invaluable for your early game clear to pick up giants and titans for you. Whereas the barbarians can be very effective in the early game for the wizards. I would actually recommend, if you're considering a might-based hero, to use the knights. Knights are a little bit more well-rounded than the Barbarians are. And because as the Wizards, you're going to tend to go into Mage Guild levels a little bit anyway, you really want somebody that has a higher chance of picking up Wisdom, and you also want somebody that's going to be able to use not only attack and defense skills to bonus up your Titans, but also somebody that can be a competent spellcaster with adequate spell power and knowledge. Tip number 14. Your roster is very self-sufficient, so really consider whether or not you need to use those neutral creatures out there. Here's how I mean. You've already got 3 shooters, you've got a nice 6-speed creature with your boars, you've got a nice tanky front line damage taker in the golems, and you've also got your rocks who are going to fly and disrupt the enemy's attack patterns. So you've got excellent units all around, you're very well rounded as a faction. And if you spend 6,000 gold on Earth Elementals or Medusa, yeah, they can be good units for you, but is that going to take you away from getting your Cloud Castle? And that's always going to be the question you have to weigh out in your mind. Tip number 15, while you are going to need a lot of precious resources, you're not going to need wood and ore nearly so much. Therefore, you should actually prioritize finding other towns and villages on the adventure map so you can upgrade them into castles. That's going to give you an extra 750 gold per day. Pretty good. And then more importantly, perhaps, also a statue for 250 gold per day and a marketplace that can help you trade to meet your quotas on whatever your expensive purchase is at the moment that you're trying to get. It can't possibly be worth your time to have 200 units of wood and 200 units of ore in the mid game. Yeah, try and leverage that into some other opportunities, why don't you? Tip number 16. Use some clever positioning to keep your fragile halflings safe and happy. Here's how it works. Take your halflings and put them into the 4th position with rocks and boars on either side of them. Make sure you have grouped formation on, and then take one single boar to the very top of your battlefield in the very first position. When you're attacking a 6-speed gargoyle, you're going to get your 6-speed boar to go very first. They are going to move in front of the halflings who are flanked on either side with the 2x creatures. And now look at this. The gargoyles cannot reach your halflings. They are very, very safe. It's worth noting that this tactic will not work on flying creatures that have a double hex attack or cyclopes, for example. And you are going to have a really high skill issue problem here. If you forget to turn off group formation for the next fight, you're probably gonna feel bad and dumb and silly and stuff. Fixfox has never done that. I'm not speaking from experience. I'm totally speaking from experience. Tip number 17, halflings are one of the best users of the Bless spell. You're already gonna try and keep them alive anyway. You're going to use them as a priority stack. Prioritize the Bless spell on them because at worst, they're gonna do 1 damage each. But at best, they can do 3 damage each. That Bless spell is absolute money. Give it a try. You're not going to regret it. Tip number 18, everything is expensive, like all the time. And so with Wizards, knowing that they are the most expensive faction in the game, you got to be pretty careful about where you pick them. You're going to want to pick them on XL and large sized maps. Anything that's got lots of resources, that's good. That's going to help you get to that late game powerhouse fantasy, spell casting, and Titans. That's going to be the time to pick the Wizards. Where don't you pick the Wizards? Probably think twice on small and medium-sized maps with really, really low resources. Now, given how expensive the Wizards are, though, there is just a little bonus, 18.5 tip here, and that is to maybe find another faction that isn't so expensive, like, I don't know, the Knights, who mostly rely on wood and ore, which you don't rely on that much, and maybe use that other town to get built up so you have some additional troops to supplement your army, including the 7-speed champion. If you can get to Titans and 5th level spells, and you have a 7th speed creature so you get the first bit of spell casting off, you can truly be an enemy to reckon with. Again, maybe this is not going to happen unless it is a large or an XL map, but give it a try. Let me know how it goes. I am so funny. Tip number 19 is maybe my favorite tip of all time, and that is this. Nobody likes a sore loser. If you have to give territory over in order to avoid losing a major fight to a barbarian or a knight, then give the space graciously. And then the note continues on with this. It says, however, if you must insist on being snarky, it can be worth the 2,500 gold to send a hero with 1 boar and Elemental Storm to welcome your conquering foes. I'm a genius. That's maybe one of my favorite tips of all time. And finally, with no further ado, tip number 20 is get used to being uncomfortable. In the early game, Barbarians and Knights are going to push you around a little bit. In the mid game, Sorceresses and Necromancers, they're going to be pretty tough to deal with. And in the late game, the Warlocks arguably have the best troop in the game, and they've got some really nasty counters to what you want to do. But for the Wizards, you have the late game because you're going to combine the very best of all the spell casting with one of the best creatures in the game. And those two things together, if you can get them both online, that is when you truly win. But that means that in the early game, you're going to have to give up ground. That means you're probably going to lose some fights early on. That means you're going to have to take a couple of gut punches and not panic. Do not panic. Don't exit the game. Don't quit. Don't stop playing, because the longer that the game goes on, the greater your chances of winning become. Stick to it. Don't panic, and get used to being uncomfortable. And with that being said, folks, that's it. That's 20 tips and tricks that are going to help you be the very best wizard player you can be here in Heroes of Might and Magic 2. But I've got a very wonderful secret and surprise, something I've held on to this entire time. I'm so excited. I get the opportunity to host one of my favorite players in the Heroes of Might and Magic 2 community. This is Picso, all the way from France. Give it up for Picso, and he's going to share from his favorite faction in Heroes of Might and Magic 2 some of his favorite tips that's going to help elevate your game even higher. Picso, take it away.
Bonjour à tout le monde, c'est Picso. I'm Picso, all the way from France. First of all, a huge thank you to Fixforks for inviting me into his awesome video about wizard tips in Heroes of Might and Magic 2. I'm truly honored, and honestly collaborating with such a thoughtful and insightful player, it's always a pleasure for me. Now let's talk about Titans. They are huge. They hurl lightning bolts like Zeus himself on an espresso overdose. But here's the twist. Upgrading a giant into a titan, it's actually one of the worst deals in the entire game. Let's break it down. A giant costs 2,000 gold and 1 gem. A titan costs 5,000 gold and 2 gems, okay? But if you upgrade them, you're paying another 6,000 gold and 2 gems on top of the giant himself. That means your titans ends up costing you 8,000 gold and 3 gems in total. That's 60% more gold and 50% more gems than just buying a titan straight away. The developers clearly wanted to punish impatience. You either wait for the titan dwelling and save a fortune, or you pay a luxury tax for early firepower and tempo. So unless you're desperate or drowning in resources, upgrading giants is basically throwing gold into the clouds themselves. So yeah, the upgrade cost is giant. On a small or medium maps, building giants barely worth it, okay? Unless the map is super rich or you've got gem mines in your starting biome, okay? Otherwise, forget it. Go for easier units like Magi's, Archmagi's. Focus your economy on those incredible units and lean into what wizards do the best. Magic. Invest in Magic Guild. Sometimes you might build giants just for themselves, okay? But if your end goal is titans, save your resources. Here's a small trick though. You can build the giant dwelling at the end of the week. That's okay, just to get the growth started for next week. But upgrading them, still not worth it at all. Save your gold, save your gems, recruit titans directly. Bottom line, if you want titans, really want titans, and you should want titans because those creatures are amazing, just plan ahead, go big, and don't fall into the all upgrade trap. That's all for me. Thank you once again, my dear Fixfox, for the kind invitation. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with such a nice guy like you. À bientôt tout le monde. Ciao.
Mama, there goes that man again. Picso, thank you so very much for collaborating with me on this video, and thank you for all that you do for the Heroes of Might and Magic community. You can find the link to Picso's work in the description of this video. Please go and check him out. And folks, with that, we're going to come to the close of this video. Please remember that I love Heroes of Might and Magic, and I play it weekly. So please, if you like this video, like, subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with your mama, put it on your Facebook page. Carrier pigeon, I think that they can still use those. Let's see. Oh, NFTs. I think that you can actually put the link to this video in an NFT somewhere and you can sell it for like $5 billion. Go and do that. Go have a lot of fun doing that. Let me know how it goes. And above all, folks, please do me a huge favor and look after you, look after your friends, look after your family. Take very good care of yourself until I see you in the next one. Until then, my name is Fixfox, and I'm out. Peace.